Hey everybody, it's Austin again. Alright, so this time I'm going to be reading you a writing. It is a summary about the book Growing Up by Russell Baker. It is a book about Russell Baker growing up. For those of you who have not read it, okay book. Chapter 6, beware. Not saying any more. For those of you who have read it, I'm going to read you the summary. Do not copy it. I'm only posting this video as a reference. But this is my summary. This is what I wrote as a summary for Growing Up. Russell Baker's book, Growing Up, has many elements that both entertain and inform the reader with the events of Russell's life. Growing Up is largely a book that is about the Depression, despite its many other elements. This book tells the story of a child growing up through major historical events such as the Depression, World War II, as well as many personal events such as death, moving, poverty, and love. Throughout the book, there is a disconnection between Russell and Lucy Elizabeth, Russell's mother. It is this connection that is the foundation for the opposition of Russell and Lucy. Throughout Russell's childhood, Lucy is determined to get Russell to make something of himself. The relationship of Russell and Lucy could be described as dysfunctional. There are many examples of this dysfunctionality throughout the book. For example, at one point in the book, Lucy Elizabeth declares Russell the man of the family. Before declaring me man of the family, she had never spanked me, and by that time, when I was 8, I was too large for spanking. It was her notion, picked up I know not where, that boys my age needed a good thrashing when they misbehaved. These she administered with my belt, often for what seemed to me like trivial offenses such as coming home late for supper because I was having a good time sledding on the hill. A man had a responsibility to meet his social obligations on time. Unquote. Page 124. This quote exemplifies the opposition between Russell and Lucy. Lucy is trying to discipline Russell, the man of the family, to be responsible and punctual. She is trying to discipline Russell by lashing him with his belt. Despite these lashings, Russell stays strong and opposes Lucy. He would not give her the satisfaction of triumph, and to deprive Lucy of that satisfaction, Russell refused to cry during the lashings. Quote, in these moments we were very close to raw hatred of each other. We were two wills of iron. She was determined to break me. I was just as determined that she would not. Unquote. Page 125. That was one of Russell's difficulties in growing up. This story is also of the Depression. The Depression was a major event in the economic timeline. It was the Depression that swallowed millions of people's lives and put a majority of the employed out of work. One of these employed that was put out of work was Olaf, a baker/margarine salesman. Lucy Elizabeth, Russell's mother, fell in love with this man. He was everything that she looked for in a man. He didn't drink, he wasn't hardworking, and he made something of himself. Olaf ended up moving around to try and find a job. Lucy and Olaf wrote back and forth, but in the end, Olaf fell victim to the economic hardships. Quote, the war was over with, the good times were over with. Well, it will all come out okay, I hope so, had become I am lost and going and not interested in anything anymore. Olaf disappeared into the Depression. My mother's hopes for finding love and security vanished with him. End quote, page 115. This demonstrates how, in the beginning of the Depression, Olaf was hopeful. By the end of the Depression, Olaf was just another lost soul that had been swallowed by economic frailty. Overall, I found this book good. I would have rated this book an 8 out of 10. I found this book at times entertaining, while at other points the book was slow and bland. I gave the book this rating because the majority of it was engaging and flowed well. For example, in Chapter 11, Russell's family goes on welfare. This was interesting due to the shameful spin of being on welfare. I found it curious that Lucy Elizabeth found it shameful to be on welfare. I was puzzled by Lucy's shame because I wouldn't think that accepting government handouts was that uncommon during that time period. During that same chapter, I was also enticed by the Christmas element. First, I myself love Christmas and find it an especially thrilling time of the year in which families get together and regale. I was also hooked by the expectation of Russell's reaction to his Christmas presents. At other times in the book, I was thoroughly uninterested. One such time was the entire chapter 6. To me, it seemed to drag on. All this chapter was a transcription of letters, at first between Olaf and Lucy, then became solely letters to Lucy from Olaf. It was tolerable to a point, but then became repetitive. I found that the content in Olaf's letters began to repeat. I think that Russell Baker's book, Growing Up, is an overall entertaining book. I do think that this book is deserving of its place on the Dimensions reading list. As previously stated, I do find this book a good one, but despite the dull moments. I will admit there are dull moments, but I found the book similar to a roller coaster. There are high points and low points. The high points are the ones that draw you into the book and make you want to continue reading. In contrast, the low points are the ones that bore you and make the book move horribly sluggish. However, this story is one of a person who lived through many historical landmarks. In a way, this story is a demonstration of the human's ability to thrive through hardships. It tells a story of a boy who grew up during the Depression and World War II. Both events were economically and socially taxing on society. In my opinion, this book deserves to remain on the Dimensions Reader's reading list because it is an autobiography, a self-written documentary of one's life, and in this case documents the life of one during at least 2 historically significant events. In addition to that, this book, Growing Up, uses both fact and fiction. Excuse me. The author tells the story of his childhood, his adolescence, and some of his adulthood using factual, first-hand experiences. Russell Baker creates a primary source of life during the Depression and World War II, while at the same time spinning some of the events in his life to glorify and entertain the reader. He uses humans' natural credulity to be able to embellish certain parts of his history. By embellishing, he makes the story more ebullient and readable. Finally, I thought this was an entertaining book that had some dull moments, but is still deserving of a position on the Dimensions Reader list due to its factual nature, while at the same time being somewhat glorified and embellished to keep the story effusive. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, comment, like. If you have any improvements on any of my writings, comment. Don't be afraid. Thank you. And I am out.